Glenn Schuman, and also wisdom. Daniel, so much wisdom being spoken from in the press conference. We have coaches talking fall camp and what that looks like for Georgia next on Locked On Bulldogs.
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is everybody? Golly.
There it is.
There it is. No, we got there. Welcome to the Locked On Bulldogs podcast. I am Daniel. He is Clint. Thanks to FanDuel for bringing us today's episode. FanDuel.com, the official sportsbook of Locked On Bulldogs. More on them in a moment. Thank you to you all who are here. The everydayers are here. The first listeners are here. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We appreciate that. And we're excited to talk some Georgia football today, Clint. You mentioned it's coordinator season. We got offensive coaches and defensive coaches speaking to the media. We're going to talk about the defensive coaches on today's episode and then another one tomorrow. And we will talk about the offensive coaches next week, everything that Mike Bobo and Todd Hartley had to say. And so stay tuned for that. Clint, do you want to start with Schuman, the old hat, or want to go to T-Rob, the new blood?
I think we need Glenn to begin, Daniel. I think the old guard, because this just in, you get one or two more fall camp Glenn Schumans, everybody. So soak it up while you can, enjoy it while you can. Look,
we're not listening.
Okay, that's fine. That's what
we can't hear you.
Okay, can't hear me. Let's start with Glenn Schuman. He said a couple things that were very, very interesting to me in the presser. Daniel, I want to go through it. To begin with, let's start with injury updates. Let's start with the same thing we talked about before. We talked injuries. We talked who is healthy and who is doing everything right. And he said Smile Monin is exactly where he needs to be and exactly where the coaches want him to be. AKA, we are not going to overdo it with him in fall camp. And he is on pace with what we expect. And what we expect is for him to start week 1. And he is exactly there. Daniel, this was more confirmation to what we know is happening at practice right now. How good is that to hear from the defensive coordinator of UGA?
There are two types of people in this world. The ones that you want to hear are practicing, and ones that you want to hear are limited in practice. Right? Smile Monin falls in is the rare person that the latter of that group. It is good for Georgia if he is limited in practice. Now, no, Curry values practice, so we value practice. It's important. It matters. It's essential to what we do. But if there's a guy on this defense, maybe short of Malachi Starks, that I would trust to be limited in practice and still be able to step in right away and contribute to the best of his ability, to the height of his powers, his potential, it is Smile Monin.
That's right.
CJ Allen needs reps. Boy, he need them reps. Raylan Wilson needs reps. Boy, does he need some reps. And so a lot of these younger guys, and by the way, there's the true freshman to consider, Chris Cole to consider. There's other guys who are going to be stepping in, picking up some reps. Those are going to be great. Smile Monin being limited in fall camp is great news for Georgia because, as you said, we want him on August 31, Clint. That's the day we want him to be peaking, if you will.
Glenn Schuman saying that, and then saying also in the same breath, the inside linebacking core. I'm going to talk about 3 names in particular. Talking about CJ Allen and Raylan Wilson. They are getting the reps. Daniel just mentioned it. This is the bonus to a 3-headed monster. We've seen this before. Stop me if you know this blueprint.
Okay, know it, but go on. Tell us about it.
I'll tell you about it. Strong safety, gifted safety play.
Oh, we have that.
Okay, great. A stout defensive line interior, veteran presence on the interior defensive line with a havoc wreaking end edge player getting
first round draft pick. Edge
First
player,
round
is that
draft
what we're
pick,
looking at?
edge
Okay,
player.
I've seen it. I
And
know
a
it.
three-headed, talented inside linebacking
Mm.
crew that has all potential abilities to do everything a linebacker does. Ladies and gentlemen, we need them reps for Raylan Wilson and for CJ Allen if they're going to be what they are. Smile Mondin has that between the ears. He is fine. Now he just needs to get healthy and let him go. He's going to be good to go. Shu also said Jaylen Walker, very, very interesting comments he made. He said, when you have a guy like Jaylen Walker, you must get him on the field in different avenues if they want to pursue their profession in football. AKA, let me translate this for you all.
It's not quite Kerbinese, but it's Glenninese.
It's Glenninese. I said three-headed monster, and I set y'all up. That was on me. I'm sorry, not sorry.
No, knock him down now.
Add the fourth in there because Jaylen Walker, ladies and gentlemen, what Glenn just said is he's going to be an edge rusher. He's fantastic at it. But also, just so you know, a player like him, you can't just put into one position. No. Jaylen Walker is going to be a jack of all trades on this defense. You want a heavy package somewhere in there, a pass rush package, put him on the edge, a heavy package in the secondary. We're going to go ahead and put a third guy in the. Tell me Glenn ain't going to put three out there on the field at one time. Tell me you're not going to see Smile Monton, CJ, as well as Jaylen on the field with their hand off the ground, off the line of scrimmage. I think they would. Really interesting to hear him talk about Jaylen needing to get on the field because of how good he is everywhere.
Yeah. Jaylen Walker, obviously one of the best players on this team that Georgia fans just don't even know what to do with. Like because he's positionless. He's the Tom Crean of this unit.
I didn't say it. He said it this time.
But I'm saying it. He doesn't have a position. What he does is he comes in there and he wrecks the game for an offense. What he does is he comes in there and he makes game-changing plays. And so Glenn is absolutely right. You got to get this guy on the field, and we're going to see him on the field. Now, does that mean you have to take somebody off the field? Well, obviously, you can only play 11, so you can take somebody off the field. But nobody said it has to be one of those inside backers, Clint. Nobody said one of the inside backers has to come off the field when Jaylen comes on the field. Maybe you take a defensive lineman off the field.
That's what I'm saying.
Maybe Hill off the field at star. Maybe you mix things up here or there. You put him on the edge. You put him in the middle. It's beneficial to Georgia to see this guy on the field as much as possible. I think he's a ton of snaps. I think he's going to get a ton of run. But I do think you're going to see this year, as much as Georgia fans love consistency, we love knowing what's going on. Yeah, so much so that we want the worst quarterback to play just because he's the one we know.
Also, homeboy in the comments saying Carson Beck is boring.
Please, God, give me a boring quarterback. Please.
If that's boring, all day long.
Hey, homeboy, we're not playing college football 25 on the PlayStation. Okay?
But I am.
Oh, we all are. But that's not what this is. This is real life. See, sometimes you have to disconnect your video game from your real life.
That's interesting.
You want a boring, good quarterback. All right.
I have one more thing about Glenn, then we're going to get to T-Rob. But first, these. First, these.
Oh, yeah, no, these. Oh, you mean these, Clint. First, these.
I love sports. I love them so much. I never want to stop. Playoffs are winding down. I'm getting fewer games. Sports aren't sportsing like I want them, but FanDuel let me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I got to do is open the app, dream up bets anytime I want. I'm always in the mood, and I always dream up something. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a bonus or a boost daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com. Start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. The final
Clint,
thing
you mentioned you got one more thing about T-Rob, but let me just tell you, we got a whole episode to talk about. I'm sorry, to talk about Glenn here. We got the whole rest of this episode, so there's no need to rush things. There's no need to rush along. Like we got this segment to talk about Glenn, and we got next segment to talk about Glenn. We'll talk about T-Rob on the next one. So, Georgia fans, Glenn Schuman is your defensive coordinator, and Clint mentioned it at the open. Just savor it. Savor this guy. Savor him in this role. There's no better coach of linebackers in the country. No better coordinator of defenses in the country. You just hear the way Kirby talks about him. You hear the way Mike Bobo talks about him. You hear the way T-Rob talks about him. Glenn Schuman is at the pinnacle of his game. He's got it between the ears. He's got it relationally. He can get these kids in the best positions to help them win. And he also happens to be surrounded by the most ridiculous defensive staff that's ever been assembled. You got Glenn Schuman just sitting in a recliner, like coaching ball. It's ridiculous. But Glenn Schuman is a national treasure and should be savored. All right. What else we going from the presser, Clint?
Okay, so that was the linebacking core. That was the health of the inside linebackers, the uniqueness of Jaylen Walker, what he brings to the game, and how he's going to do it. The next thing I want to talk about is, in fact, KJ Bolden, because this
let's
is the
go ahead and go there.
Second time I've heard. I'm gonna combo this with somebody else, but the second time I have heard from a UGA coach that somebody has come in ready to play, and the word I care most about is mature. Daniel, he talking about how this young man is mature, how this young man don't mess around, how this young man is not only physically gifted, but he is also between the ears gifted. He knows what he's doing. He knows the assignment. He knows what's going on, and it's fantastic. So I think the addition of KJ Bolden in the backfield of the defensive back room. And what's wild about this, the addition that he brings and how good he is talent-wise, but skill-wise, but also this maturity piece. We're going to need him to play big reps in a big hurry. Dan Jackson is, in fact, playing first reps right now, has the majority of the first reps. But KJ Bolden's going to get his run, and don't think, just like we talked about Jaylen Walker having to find the field because of how gifted he is. That's what coaching staffs do. Can you carry the assignment? Point one at Georgia. If you can't carry the assignment, you won't see the field. But it doesn't matter how gifted you are, Justin Fields. It doesn't matter if you can't do the assignment. He can do the assignment, but also, Daniel, he's extremely gifted. Second coach, defensive minded at UGA, to point this out about KJ Bolden.
Yeah, let me ask you this, Clint, just as a question. No need for rose-colored glasses. Just answer me honestly. I'm actually going to push past our rote response here.
Okay.
We want the players that the coaching staff thinks are the best players to start. Blah 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 blah.
Correct.
I think there's a stigma around Dan Jackson that rightly or wrongly says, if he starts, it is a negative for Georgia. It is negative for this team for Dan Jackson to start. And so I'm just going to ask you directly. Do you think it's negative? It speaks negatively. And I'm open to both responses here because I could go either way. Do you think it speaks negatively about the secondary if Dan Jackson is starting week one?
Does it speak negatively that a senior upperclassman with incredible experience who has rated highly in the 80s by measurable accounts of Pro Football Focus in an elite defense and has seen a thing, knows an assignment, and hasn't been the problem of any loss is playing in our secondary?
Yeah, that's the guy. That's the one.
No, there's no problem with me.
Question. Okay. Good.
I understood the question that you, what you're saying is because he wasn't a 4 or 5 star safety coming in, are we okay with him performing well now that he is in at UGA performing well? Of course I am. And you say, well, Dan Jackson, he has a ceiling. He might have a ceiling that KJ Bolden is able to just rocket past. You're right. I'm not denying that. But all I look at is a dude who has, since the day he's shown up, done everything right, known his assignment, been a sponge and a student, followed Kirby Smart's advice, and is currently trusted by the best defensive mind in the entire nation to captain in the defensive backfield next to Malachi Starks, a unit that must perform better. Yes, of course it's a fine thing. What it says is, come to Georgia. You don't got to be a 4 or 5 star to be exceptional on this team.
There you go.
I'll make you exceptional, a la Stetson Bennett. It's a Stetson Bennett story just on defense, Daniel.
Yeah. And it's the same type of person that doesn't want Dan Jackson on the field, that doesn't want Stetson Bennett on the field. I got another thought on that. We'll get to it. And final thoughts from Glenn Schuman's presser right after.
And this is, in fact, game time. Game time is fantastic because right now they're great. Right now, all summer long, get a memory of going to the ballpark. Daniel knows going to the ballpark with his kids. You get that hot dog, you get that Coca-Cola. Maybe you only have to spend, $85 for it, but you're making memories out there. You got no money, but you got tons of memories. That's what happens. Game Time's authorized ticket marketplace, Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices Game Time actually go down the closer you get to first pitch. Right now, any Braves fan can go ahead and get them ballpark tickets, go ahead and get them seats, go out there, get out to the ballpark, and use something like a flash deal. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event, and it's got the lowest price guarantee. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONCollege, $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Clint, we're talking about T-Rob tomorrow, but I'll jump in here with something that T-Rob was asked about why it's harder for young guys to start in the secondary, and it's an interesting note the way that he answered the question. Part of what he said is that quite simple, margin for error in the secondary is just less. If you miss a tackle on the defensive line, if you fit the wrong gap on the defensive team, can play and it's going to result in 5, 6, 7 yards, but then somebody's going to come up and make that tackle. You miss a tackle as a linebacker, that could be a really tough play. That could be a 20-yard gain. The chances are miss a tackle in the secondary. If you blow an assignment in the second, Clint, then points. Ball game like that.
That's right.
So when you ask me, is it bad for Georgia if KJ Bolden doesn't step right in and grab the reins in this starting position? Now, if he's good enough, if he's the best player, then obviously we want him to play. If he gives us the best option, then obviously we want him to play. But don't act like whatever Dan Jackson's ceiling is, don't act like that Georgia can't win the national championship with one of the 11 defenders playing at that level. Like, that's his
If Dan Jackson is the weakest part of this defense, if his grading is the weakest part of the defense, boy, you and I are happy as clams.
We're feeling great because it's okay for a guy to be back there just trying to not allow a big play, just trying to not blow a coverage, just trying to never miss an assignment. He doesn't have to make game-changing interceptions every single time he touches the ball. Guess what? He's going to put his nose in there. He's going to take good angles. How do I know all these things? Because I've seen him do it over and over and over again. I've seen him throw his body into situations over and over and over again. I'm thinking, we're all thinking about it. We're all picturing.
My heart is fluttering right now.
Listen, I've seen him do it. I know that he can be trusted. And so do I want KJ Bolden to excel? By the end of the season, do I want him to be getting the majority of the reps at safety? Yeah, I absolutely do. Is it the worst thing in the world if Dan Jackson starts for this defense? No,
not at all. Not at all.
Any other thoughts from Schuman's presser, Clint, that we need?
A couple of final notes on some names to keep an eye on. Xavier McLeod has been a absolute double team eater with the size and his presence on the run game. Again, stop me if you've heard this before, but a guy who demands a double team, freeing up linebackers to roam around and make tackles in a defense. Oh yeah, no, they're both on the Eagles and they accelerated at that really well. And then lastly, look, I think how he talks about Mykel Williams makes me believe, Daniel, Janelle Aguero and Mykel Williams, the way that Schuman talks and the way that Kirby talks about these two guys, just watch out. The balloons are going. If you're not on YouTube, go check out the balloons. They just came up because I can't stop myself from putting up two fingers when I talk about two guys. how he talks about it, Daniel, just gives me all the feels that something incredible has happened for this. Those are my final thoughts. That's the Glenn Schuman presser. That's what we have going on. This has been Locked On Bulldogs, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. We'll be back tomorrow talking about T-Rob. He was asked a question, what's the difference between Kirby and Saban, and why you at Georgia instead of Alabama? He gave us some tidbits to talk about.
Well, he didn't hold
then.
back. He just said it. He just said what everyone knew was true.
I love it. I love it. It's fantastic. We'll see you guys then.
Holy